If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we are going to go through everything you need to know in order to make your own character in Vampire the Masquerade Mind's Eye Theatre Edition, or Vampire LARP, as the ancillae call it these days. Before we properly sink our teeth into tonight's episode, I wish to tell you what you will need in order to follow along with me to make your first kindred in Mind's Eye Theatre. First and foremost, you will need a copy of the core book, either as a physical or PDF copy if you are a weirdo or allergic to books or something. If you are playing the game old school, with the archaic devices known as pen and paper, you may have a friend, or two, who is willing to lend you their copy from afar. However, as Vampire LARP requires players to act in a physical space, be it enclosed or public, it is really worthwhile supporting the developers and publishers and getting your own copy. The easiest place to buy a physical or digital copy of Mind's Eye Theatre and other supplement books is by going to drivethrurpg.com, but you can also buy the book from By Night Studios' website. I should note that there are no mechanical differences between the standard and deluxe editions of the book, only the artwork is different. That said, By Night Studios gifted me the deluxe edition, so that is the version I shall be referencing. Whilst it is not impossible to Vampire LARP without some or any knowledge of Vampire the Masquerade, I shall presume that if you are here, you know a fair amount of Vampire the Masquerade and have a basic understanding on how some, if not all, the clan mechanics work. You may have seen some online chronicles such as LA by Night by Geek and Sundry, or now on the World of Darkness channel, Chicago by Night by Near Dark Studios, and Savage City by Caffeinated Conquests, or played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which led you here, or other online chronicles, which in turn led you here anyway. You may have watched the World of Darkness documentary on Amazon Prime, which had a heavy focus on the LARP aspect of Vampire the Masquerade, and decided to see what all the excitement was about. So I won't go too in-depth with the clan laws for now. Instead, I will give a very brief overview on the playable clans in Vampire the Masquerade Mind's Eye Theatre Edition. The Assamites, who have recently adopted the term Banu Hakim, are silent virtuosos in assassination who collect blood to bring them closer to their maker. The Bruja, or Bruja, were once philosopher monarchs of an ancient civilization, but are now deadbeat rebels. The Ministry, once known as the followers of Set, adopt the idea that Set, the Egyptian gods of the underworld, is their maker, and do what they can to manipulate those around them, whilst protecting their own strange artifacts. The Gangrel resemble the beasts associated with vampires more than any other clan. The Giovanni is a strange, insular family, who embrace only within their own family. They practice necromancy, whilst dictating global finances, something that they have been doing since the late Renaissance. The La Sombra are inhumane nobles who are able to manipulate the darkness around them. Clan Malkavian are broken by madness, each one ranging from unhinged to batshit crazy. The Nosferatu are hideously disfigured upon their embrace, so they hide in sewers away from kine eyes. If you want to find out something, go and speak to one of them, as they hoard secrets. The Ravnos are described as gypsies by other kindred, but there is more to them than that, I assure you. They are powerful tricksters who can force the mind to see what really isn't there. The Toreadors enjoy every sensual pleasure that unlife has to offer them. They appear to like pretty things, but it's all terribly forced to make them seem as human as possible. The Tremere became vampires through treachery and trickery, wielding supernatural blood magic and impressive knowledge. The Samitsi distance themselves from mortality as much as possible, for they are old world lords of eldritch horror, as they are able to manipulate flesh and bone as if it was some grotesque putty. And finally, through their self-imposed entitlement and greed, the Venture are often the iron fist that rules a given city, imposing their own wills and the traditions onto kindred society. Mind's Eye Theatre also allows the players to play some of the more uncommon and rarer bloodlines, such as the Lamia, the True Bruja, and Samedi. Once you have the core book and any other source book you want, you will need a character sheet. Now, DriveThruRPG doesn't easily provide a PDF copy, and neither does the By Night Studios website for that matter, so you'll have to look elsewhere to find an interactive PDF character sheet. For this episode, I will be using the mrgon.rocksolidshells.com interactive sheet, but there are other formats available should you wish to use a different format. It should be noted that you cannot use any other form of Vampire the Masquerade character sheet for this, for reasons we will soon explore. With that preparation shenanigans biting the dust, one can now begin to create their mind's eye theatre vampire. There is no system or dice roll to be made when determining your character's clan, unless you really want to, of course. You can choose whichever one you want to roleplay as in your story. Vampire the Masquerade uses the storyteller system, which encourages players to become one with their character, to embrace them, as it were. The kindred of the world of darkness, the universe in which Vampire the Masquerade exists, usually do not embrace mortals willy-nilly, meaning that there is a reason as to why you were embraced by your sire. What sort of person were they in life? What did they do? How did they go about doing it? Where and when were they embraced? These are just some of the questions that should come to mind when building your character, as it is their life as Kine, a human, that will determine the stats and concepts. Starting at the top of the page, you should be able to fill most of these out by yourself. Character is obviously your character's name, be it their actual name or a pseudonym. Player is your name, and if you struggle with that, I think you may need to reconsider your life choices. Setting/sect defines the sort of game you will be playing, as the three main factions, the Camarilla, Anarch Movement, and Sabbat, all have very different looks and takes on kindred society. If you wish to learn more about these sects, I encourage you to listen to the Lore by Night podcast episodes on the sects, once you have finished listening to this episode, of course. Setting may also refer to a time period before the Convention of Thorns, or a LARP based around one of the independent clans, such as a family of Giovanni, for example. Clan is whatever clan you are in, including the clan as Kaitiv. In Mind's Eye Theatre, Finbloods are not available for player characters unless you purchase the appropriate Finblood floor at character creation. And title is the name of the chronicle you and the other players are performing in, such as, I don't know, London by Night, New York by Night, or join the Lore by Night Discord server by night. As for my example character, he is a gargoyle named Colin, who was created by a Tremere ancillae by the name of James to protect him and his haven, and to add some much needed muscle to complement James's adept knowledge of thaumaturgy. James shouldn't have done this for elaborate lore reasons, which may bite them both on the arse later on. A gargoyle by the name of Colin does not seem to be all that intimidating, but Colin is a 7-foot tall mass of stone and muscle, with large wings that physically impose over those who mean to harm him, his master, or the rest of the Camarilla Tremere and their chantry. Colin's greatest downfall, however, is his intelligence, or rather his lack of thereof. He is, as the fledglings would say, dumb as fuck. Some, however, may describe the gentle giant as, well, a gentle giant, going out of his way to protect the weak, if they are deemed worthy of such protection, or if the Tremere would allow it. He doesn't have many friends or associates, beyond the other gargoyles and one Nosferatu contact, and the odd mice he finds to play with. If you have filled out your character sheet correctly, you should have one final box at the top of the page to fill out. And that is the archetype box, which allows you to describe your character in a word or two that defines your character. The examples provided in the core book may seem familiar to those who have experience of older versions of Vampire the Masquerade. Those who haven't can find the list of sample archetypes within the core book. Now, one might assign Colin the caregiver archetype, as that is about protecting the weak. However, that to me implies a level of freedom that Colin the Gargoyle would not have around his Tremere overlords. Instead, he shall have the Protector archetype, which has him defend the fiends he loves, holding the line, so on and so on. When he does this in sessions or resists an action that would challenge his archetype, he may receive a free willpower resist. Now, before proceeding any further, there are a couple of things you have to be aware of that makes Vampire the Masquerade Mind's Eye Theatre character creation different from any other version of Vampire the Masquerade. Make note that you have 30 experience points to spend. If you are playing one of the main clans, you may not have to spend anything yet. However, I have to spend some of those experience points now, for Colin the Gargoyle has functioning wings, which is considered a clan merit. This costs 1 point. And as a gargoyle is considered a rare bloodline in Camarilla settings, I have to spend a further 4 points, which leaves me 25 points to spend later on. Remember this number, or whatever number you're going to be using in your character, because you're going to come back to this later on. Now that you have established some lore regarding your character, you should have an idea what sort of person they are when you assign points into your attributes. How do they solve their problems? Fighting, thinking, or talking? How do they naturally interact with the world? The attribute section is made up of 3 categories: physical, mental, and social, each one having their own focus, their area of expertise, as it were. For example, a singer would probably choose the charisma focus, whilst a lawyer would choose manipulation. These further add to the lore of your character. Decide on which one of the 3 attributes are your primary, secondary, and tertiary groups. You assign experience points in the following manner. 7 points goes to the primary attribute, 5 points are assigned to the secondary attribute, and 3 points are given to the tertiary attribute. As a hideous looking gargoyle, I will not make appearance as Colin's focus. He was created with muscle in mind and is not very intelligent. So, the physical attribute is going to be the primary group for me, and that's the one that's going to get 7 points, and the area expertise for Colin is going to be in strength. The secondary attribute is going to be social, and that is the one that has 5 points. His area of expertise is going to be charisma. And finally, the tertiary group is going to be mental, which has the 3 points, with his area of expertise being wits. And you have probably noticed the box beneath each attribute that reads bonus attributes. Ignore these for now, we will return to these later on. Actions in Vampire the Masquerade are usually made up of 1 attribute plus a skill, as there are many ways of demonstrating feats of strength and intelligence, unless you are wanting to deadlift a donkey, for example, as that would be pure strength by my reckoning. Skill points are divided up in a similar fashion to how Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition does it, in that there are no primary, secondary, and tertiary groups. 1 skill gets 4 points, 2 skills get 3 points, 3 skills get 2 points, and 4 skills gets 1 point. Crafts, performance, and science require a field of study, which is an area of expertise. For example, a musician may be great with electric guitar, but a horrible singer, or vice versa. They could be both, but you must purchase the fields of studies as separate items. With regards to Colin's skill points, I have put 1 point in animal kin, 3 points in athletics, 3 points in awareness, 4 points in brawl, 2 points in dodge, 2 points in intimidation, 1 point in investigation, 2 points in melee, 1 point in stealth, and 1 point in survival. Next we move on to backgrounds, which should further support your character concept. A havenless Ravenos is unlikely to have lots of cash, for example, and the way that you assign points here is rather specific. You assign 3 dots to one background, 2 points to another, and 1 dot to a third background. Now, it should be noted that one of these dots has to go to generation. If you don't, it is presumed you are playing as a mortal or a ghoul, which has a slightly altered character creation process. Each generation offers attribute bonus points that can be used to increase a single attribute by a maximum of how many attribute points they have. Colin is a neonate, so he has 1 bonus attribute point to increase either the physical, social, or mental attribute above 10, which you would use experience points to increase as per normal. As a neonate, Colin gets 1 bonus attribute point, which I've put in the physical attribute section. Colin would probably live near or in the Tremere Chantry with the Tremere and /or gargoyles. In addition to this, he has his Nosferatu friend, who may rely info to him every so often. So I've put 1 point in generation, 3 points in haven, and 2 points in contacts. Following this is the disciplines pane. These are your trio blood-based mythical powers. Each clan has their own 3 disciplines, but if you choose to play as a caitiff, you can choose any 3 disciplines you wish, providing it is approved by your storyteller. A caitiff with potent celerity and fortitude could easily break the game, as those 3 disciplines work very differently to how they do in V5. In Mind's Eye Theatre, you put 2 points into one in-clan discipline and 1 point in the other 2. With the case of Colin, he has 1 point in potence, 1 point in fortitude, and 2 points in visrutakia. Now we move on to the merits and flaws section, which make your character all the more unique, each one being physical, mental, social, or supernatural. Merits grant you special advantages that make you stand out from the rest of the characters in the Chronicle. Flaws are the exact opposite and are worth adding to your character sheet anyway. After all, no one is perfect. Each merit has its own point cost expenditure, and flaws adds a certain number of freebie points you can spend. You can spend no more than 7 points of merits, and you can't gain more than 7 points of flaws. This includes any bloodline or rare clan merits you purchased earlier. In the case of Colin, I have already spent 5 points on him for the ability to fly and the fact that gargoyles are considered a rarity in Camarilla settings. This means I can only spend a further 2 points of merits. I will spend them on the Daredevil merit, which increases his test pool by 3 when he takes on especially dangerous tasks, and his physical defenses is up by 2 if he takes on more than one target. As for flaws, I have given him Impatient, Illiterate, and Nightmares. If I have done my math correctly, that should take me up to 22 points. And if you want to know what those flaws do, go and buy the core book and read them. We have almost finished creating your Mind's Eye Theatre Kindred. Now it is time to spend the remainder of your experience points on whatever you want. If you want to buy an out-of-clan discipline, come up with a good reason as to why they learned them, providing the storyteller allows it, of course. If you want to increase an attribute, that will cost you 3 points. To increase a discipline, it is the new level times 3. To increase your humanity, it is 10 experience points. To purchase a merit after character creation, the amount of experience points you spend is equal to the current rating, so a 1 point merit would cost 1 point, 2 points would cost 2 points, etc, etc. And to learn a new ritual, be it necromancy or thaumaturgy, it is the level to be purchased, which is usually 1 to 4, times 2. As for the rest of the character sheet assets that can be purchased, these numbers change whether you are a Neonate, Ancillae, Pretender Elder, Master Elder, and Luminary Elder. I shan't read what most of these are, as most players would be encouraged to play as Neonates, which I shall read to you right now. To increase or purchase a new background or skill, that is the new level times 1. To purchase an out-of-clan discipline, that is the new level times 4. To purchase a technique, which is the in-game's name for a combination discipline, it is 12 experience points, and you also need the required disciplines to use said techniques. But to return back to Colin's character sheet, I have given 1 additional point in Dodge, Melee, Intimidation, Potence, and Vice Retakia, and if I've done my math correctly, I do not have any experience points left. Finally, you have to record your morality, which is set to 5. There is also your blood pool. Neonates have 10 blood points and can spend 1 point of blood per turn. Once you have written these down, you can shout hooray as you have created your first Mind's Eye Theatre Kindred with success. Yes, the book has all that you need to understand the character creation process, but I have found it sometimes helps to have someone walk you through the process, rather than nag your storyteller 100 times. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.